I'm Jared Saunders. I'm the Vice President of Sustainability for Newfound Gold. I've started with Newfound Gold about 2 years now. Originally born and raised from Newfoundland and Labrador. I left Newfoundland like many people do, ran off and joined the military, spent a little bit of time in the military, and then I got into the environment sector. Spent a number of years working in cleaning up contaminated sites. I worked around mine sites as to do my PhD in. After that, I started in consulting work. Spent 5, 10 years in consulting work doing different aspects all over Canada. And then I got into the mining sector. One of the reasons I joined the mining sector was I joined Vale in Newfoundland and Labrador just as they were getting ready to set up the Long Harbour processing plant. For me, as a proud Newfoundland and Labradorian, I thought what Vale was doing within Newfoundland and Labrador was something that was going to change the overall mining aspect within the province. So I wanted to be part of that as a builder of a positive legacy for future generations. So I joined Vale just as they're bringing on the Long Harbour processing plant. So I helped bring that from construction up into operations as responsible for the environment department. And then, as time went on, I also took over the environment department for the Voisey's Bay mine site in Labrador. So I was responsible for all of the environment department for Valley and Newfoundland and Labrador and helped them go to their underground mining and bring that online through all the permitting process, the engagement, that kind of stuff. About 2 years ago, a position came available at Newfound Gold. As I'm originally from the local area, from central Newfoundland, I saw the work that they were doing there and see this as another project that's going to leave a lasting positive impact on the communities of central Newfoundland, and I want to be a part of that. So I joined the Newfound Gold team and been having a great time since. I started as the Director of Environment and Regulatory Affairs. I started there really to look at what the company was doing and develop the social license of the company. What I mean by social license, I mean the ongoing approval of the company or project by its stakeholders. It's really hard to measure that, giving certain metrics. However, it's important for a project to have a social license or a positive social license in order for it to move in towards from exploration to development. I started as the director in the past year, February, I moved into the VP role of sustainability. And really what that has done is brought that social license aspect and the community engagement aspect into the main senior management team, and allows for us to have those dialogues while decisions are being made for the company, which I think is an important part as we move forward from exploration to our future endeavors. When I first joined the company, it was mainly around exploration. Newfoundland and Labrador has seen a lot of exploration over the past number of years. Newfoundland has had mining in the past. However, the island aspect of itself hasn't seen a lot of mining over the past 30 years. There are a few operating mines around, but not a lot. So the biggest aspect for me is engaging with our stakeholders, explaining the difference between what exploration is, advanced exploration, and what development could look like. It's a part of the unknown for them. They know what exploration is going to be. It's going to mean a drill there. It's going to be a small drill pad or whatever. However, as soon as you start talking about mining, there's a lot of negative stories from the past that are out there that they can see on social media or in the news. However, mining today is very different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago or further back. So it's just explaining to the stakeholders, all of them, from regulatory to Indigenous communities to local communities to special groups such as fishing or hunting, those types of things. So it's being out there, being proactive to explain to the people the stages we're going through, being honest with them on what the next stage is going to be, and sort of taking some of their feedback in and changing the way you operate by using some of that feedback, but still accomplishing the goals that you need to. As our name sort of implies, Newfound Gold, we're largely a Newfoundland and Labrador company, and that's really in the fibers of all the decisions that we make. So from our local hiring to procurement, we try to keep it as local as possible. For example, in our hiring practices, over 60% of our workforce is from within 1 hour's drive of our work site. So they work with us on a daily basis. Over 92% of them currently are from Newfoundland and Labrador itself. And then there are a few others that are specialized skills that are from the rest of Canada. But over 90% of our workforce is from the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. And that allows us, as we're dealing with other stakeholders also, to see that we are a local company. We're not a company that's coming in from somewhere else trying to do a project and then leave. They know that we're trying to build in the community and we're trying to become significant members of the community or neighbors that help the area prosper. One of the things that we do on a frequent basis is have community town halls where we send around actual postcards, but a significant portion is older people, so they're not always on Facebook or different types of social media. So we send around postcards. So every single house within a 50-kilometer radius tells them of the events that is on the go. But on the back, it also gives them a number of ways to submit questions ahead of time that we can address during the town hall meeting. So we go into the town hall meeting, and one of the first things I always do is say, here are the questions that you have provided to us, so that people know what the questions were, and that also allows, if that person is sitting in the in the audience, says, okay, yes, they're listening to me. I put up those questions. I say, look, I'm going to talk, do my presentation. I believe I've answered these questions. However, at the end, I haven't. I put up the same questions again, and I sort of open it to the floor to say, these were the questions. Hopefully I've answered those. If not, do anyone else have those? People, I find, really like that concept because they feel that they're being heard. They're also feel that they have a say in the way that we're operating. So that's just one example. Another example is that we do just meet some people one-on-one. For example, if there's someone that has a question from an Indigenous group or from a regulator standpoint, we engage them before the permitting even starts. One of the things in Newfoundland that's part of the process is that all of our Indigenous partners, our stakeholders, do get notified of any permits. However, personally, I wouldn't want to see it just as the permit is being submitted, because then it gives them a time frame of X number of days that they get to review it. So before these permits are submitted, myself or my team go and have conversations with all these key stakeholders to say, this is the work that we want to do. This is why we want to do it. Here's how we're going to do it. And for example, sometimes, such as an Indigenous partner or a fishing enthusiast or someone like that will say, well, have you thought about this or have you thought about that? And then we'll change our work a little bit or change it before we even get to the permitting process. And it even helps then as it goes to the regulator goes through this process of, getting consultation. Hopefully, and the way I like to see it is that most Indigenous partners or all the key stakeholders said, yeah, they've already talked to me on that. I feel comfortable with that. No problems on my end. And it just helps with the permitting process also. Mines can be. As I think I've stated, earlier in this chat, the mining of 40, 50 years ago is not the way we mine today. Mines can actually come in, if they're done and designed properly, they can achieve the goal of extracting the resource with the minimal amount of impact and not leaving a long-term legacy issue behind. That is why, I started with Valet. They had a new technology using hydromet to extract the nickel. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to join this Newfound Gold team at the very start, because there are some decisions that we can make now that will minimize the environmental impact as we go forward. From pushing for certain way we design tailings impoundment areas or certain way we do processing. All that stuff is very different now than it was even 10, 15 years ago. And being at this part in the project, I think allows us to make these decisions. And that's where I sit at the VP level, allows me to have that input and direct the decisions of the company so that we do this in a sustainable way. We talk to all of our employees and explain to them the work that we do today could affect how work is done in the future. So if we don't do something right now, for example, even if we have a minor gas or oil spill now from our vehicle or drill, and we don't handle that properly and clean it up and show that we're doing this in a responsible way, people are going to realize, or the perception is going to be out there that they don't care. They're just going to do what they want. So we explain to people right from the start, from day one when they come in, they get their orientation or start with the company, how all this plays a bigger part in a larger wheel that's turning and how important their roles are even in the field. In addition to that, so we do the training, we do have those conversations with people. Then we have specialized teams of health, safety, environment, all that stuff out doing their checks. Not only that, all the areas that we operated in are publicly accessible areas. So the local population, because we are out in front of them having those conversations at the town hall, telling them what we're going to do, they do still go out and take a look. They have a feedback mechanism where they can come back, during the town halls, or there are lines that they can call to say that there's problems and all that stuff. And one example where I know shows that we're getting it right, we were in a town hall situation in the last 2 years where we were having a conversation about exploration drilling. There was something that was on the go that wasn't up to our standards. We said to the person, look, I understand what your concern is, however, that's not on our property. Before we could even say any more than that to justify how it wasn't us that was doing this issue and we would look into it, a member of the local public stood up and said, yes, this area, I've looked at the maps, this area is not on a Newfound Gold property. That is on X mine sites or exploration company's property. And Newfound Gold would not do it this way because they set the standard around here. That was one of those moments where I was like, ha ha, as in we're getting it right. People are seeing what we are trying to do and they feel comfortable bringing forward and are there to support us along this way. We take people in right at the first day into their orientation and show them what our standards are and how we exceed what is required from regulatory or the general public. We go out and train these people on how we want things done in a sustainable way. For example, if you do have a spill, here's how you report it, here's how we take care of it. So they understand all that. Then we also have a secondary line of defense, I'll call it, where we have specialized crew, say an environment crew, that their jobs are to go around and do these types of checks and inspections to make sure things aren't happening without the company knowing, looking at not only our employees, but also our contractors. And we hold our contractors to the same level standard as our employees. So they're out there checking things to make sure that things are done correctly. And then we also don't have a fence up around our property right now where we're doing exploration. So from time to time, we do have the general public that do transfer through our areas. They're not right next to our work areas, but as soon as we pull out of an area, many times a local resident do come in and check to see how things are done. But we're known as taking care of the environment. For example, as soon as we're done with a drill site and we know we're not going back, we'll remediate that area, we'll seed it, we'll even put trees on it. And then we get some experts, like there is a local forestry company here that does timber work. They plant a lot of trees every year. So we even ask them to come in and look at our revegetation and how our trees are growing. and see if you can provide us feedback on how to continuously improve on this. All this is to show the local community and to protect the environment. So at the end of the day, we conduct our work, but in 1, 2, 10, 20 years from now, the areas are all remediated and there are no sign of our activities in the area. One of the most sensitive aspects of the environment that we have within our work area is around water and water management. We're located next to the town of Appleton. We're located very close to the Gander Lake, which is a protected water supply. And then we're also located along the Gander River, which is a very renowned salmon fishing river. So one of the things that we have done is gone above and beyond on how we control water and things like sedimentation and all that stuff coming from our sites. We have partnered with the provincial Newfoundland and Labrador government to put in real-time monitoring stations, which I believe we are the first exploration company in Newfoundland and Labrador to do that. Normally it's after the environmental assessment process. It comes out as a condition that you must put these stations in to monitor the water in real time. However, we have installed 2 of these stations where water leaves our site to not only meet regulatory requirements, but to go above and beyond so that we have that baseline data. But not only that, when we're out and talking to the communities, we can say, look, here, we're already part of this real-time water quality station network, which means we don't collect the data ourselves. We just pay for the instrumentation. The data gets collected by the regulators, gets sent to a regulator database, and anyone across the world can log in right now, type in real-time water quality station Newfoundland and Labrador, and see what the water quality is like leaving our site right now. Some other examples are we're so close to the community. All of our exploration activities, noise levels, our light levels, and all that stuff, we don't want to impact the community. So we've done work on that. We've done all of our fish studies to ensure that we're not going to have any adverse health effects on fish. We have done significant amount of environmental baseline data right across our entire site. And my goal is that we have already collected all the required environmental baseline data for all the upcoming permits so that we are not the bottleneck in the process. Because I see many times as projects are going towards development, there's a piece of data or a baseline requirement that you need, could be even as long as a year or 2 that you need of data that is not collected yet, and it slows down the project. However, we've been proactive ever since 2021 before I got here, but really stepped it up after 2023 to make sure that we close all those data gaps and collect all the environmental baseline data that is required to advance to the next steps in permitting. It is important for me to be at the forefront. I want to make sure that our company is known as one that does things in as an environmentally friendly way as possible. Sometimes the word as leaders, it comes with a certain tone, but I like to say that we're at the forefront, where you're doing things, setting the standards, going above and beyond the regulatory requirements, and doing what people would expect us to do. And then I believe that also helps with our social license, because people understand that we are going to go in, we're going to do exploration, we're working towards future development, but right now we're doing exploration. They see us, they go see our drills go in, they see when we leave what we do, and we set that standard right across for all companies to follow. The PEA is a very big step for myself and my team. What the PEA does for me with dealing with stakeholders and social license, it really gives us the first time that we'll actually have a defined development project to talk about with stakeholders, help us also to talk about the way we would say store tailings or process the ore, and have those conversations. By having those conversations also allows us to determine ahead of time, before we get into advanced permitting, what some of the major sticking points or concerns could be from the general public that we weren't aware of. This allows us, to change our plans now before advanced engineering is done or advanced permitting, and allows us to make modifications now to help streamline things as we go forward. The PEA for me is the first step in allowing my team to really get in front of stakeholders to make sure they're informed of what's on the go, how we're going to proceed with this project, and talk about in more detail on how a mining operation would work in this area. I believe the work that Newfound Gold is doing is going to be a very positive contribution for Newfoundland and Labrador, and even more so for Central Newfoundland. I think it's actually going to be a generational change that will allow people from Central Newfoundland to work in the mining industry for years to come. And hopefully it also spurs off to other finds within the local area. And then it becomes a little bit of a Central Newfoundland powerhouse in mining.